guys, so the meeting is going to be recorded. So just to let you know, because the recordings will be made available later for you or for other participants who couldn't attend today. So I was saying we are 5 partners from 5 countries. You can see all of us, all of our organizations here in slides. Pro-Carpathia is the coordinator of the project, and today we have Agnieszka with us. Agnieszka, if you want to say hi. She was just here and now she disappeared.
Yes, hello.
Okay. Thank you, Agnieszka. And we also have Georgia that is back with us. So Georgia is, as I said, one of the 3 trainers of these modules. Georgia, do you want to briefly introduce yourself?
Yes, of course. Hello, everybody. My name is Georgi Vasiljevic. I'm member of or project leader of Mind Europe Institute from Novi Sad, Serbia. I will have 2 last training sessions, training 4 and training 5. I will, let's say, teach you how to create attractive tourist maps in training 4. And after that, we'll try even to boost it to another level and to create virtual tours or 360 tours on one case study that I chosen. So I think this is really important for especially protected areas and natural areas to have mapped all attractions and all zones that are interesting for tourists or important for protecting nature. So this is what you can expect from me at trainings 4 and 5.
Thank you, Georgia. And we will go back to the structure of the modules in the next slide. So we'll talk more about that. So the project overall, the aim of the project is to help the people who are working with the natural and cultural heritage of protected areas build their heritage interpretation skills. The idea is the vision of the project is to build deeper bonds between visitors and the natural and cultural heritage of protected areas, not simply explaining places, but helping people to really relate with them and care for them on a deeper level. So the training program of the project is a blended training program, and it's made of 2 big chunks. The first part, which is what we are doing now, is the online part. So we are going to have 5 online seminars setting the ground for heritage interpretation. So in these sessions, we will be covering some basic knowledge on heritage interpretation. In the second part, which will take place later on in autumn, we are going to have learning labs. The learning labs are actually on-site workshops where we will try to apply what we learn through the online seminars in a real organizational setting. So let's look at this in a bit more detail. So here you can see the 5 appointments for the online seminars. We will be covering introduction to heritage interpretation, interpretive guiding, interpretive writing, and then the 2 digital sessions led by Georgia on the mapping and other interpretive media and virtual tours. And then, so the recordings, as I said, will be available afterwards, so you can go back to them anytime you need. And in phase 2, the learning labs will take place sometime in autumn, next autumn. There will be 2-day workshops where we will prototype an interpretive service for a local pilot site. So these on-site workshops will take place in all partner countries. So here you can see where they will take place: in Italy, in Serbia, in Slovenia, in Poland, and in Greece. Okay, so let's just start with the session today. This is, as I said, an entry-level introduction to heritage interpretation. So it would be nice to start just with your idea of what interpretation is. So what does interpretation mean to you? Just write in the chat box what is interpretation for you. Don't overthink it, okay? So it's just the first thing that comes to your mind when you think about interpretation. Let's just take a minute for it. Meaning making, making sense of some things. I think you don't need this session, guys, if this is your understanding of interpretation. So thank you. That is really, really very much in line with what we are going to talk about today. Deeper understanding of heritage, showing the case the way we see it, with explaining, telling the story. Yes, that as well. Very good. Excellent. So what we are going to talk about right now, it's exactly, you really nailed it, because meaning is what this first part is dedicated to. So what is heritage interpretation? We will start with some challenges, so why we need it, where it comes from, and what are the definitions that are out there. So why heritage interpretation? Those of you who work in protected areas know that these areas are under growing pressure. So the visitor numbers are rising. There's more and more people that want to experience nature, especially after the COVID outbreak. And these audiences are more diverse, and also their expectations in terms of quality of the experience, they are changing. So protected areas need to find a balance. On the one hand, we need to boost the quality of the visitor experience we offer. And on the other hand, we need to still keep thinking about protection and care and responsibility. So for this purpose, sharing information, just simply explaining places in a traditional way, is no longer enough. What we really need is to try and work on the relationship between the people and the places. And indeed, interpretation does not simply ask what information do we want to give visitors, but it also, and it mainly asks, what relationship we want to help visitors build with these places. So sometimes in our work, we actually failed to build that relationship. And why is that? Sometimes we forget that there are barriers that are not only physical. So sometimes we use language that is too complex or too technical jargon. Sometimes we assume that our visitors have more previous knowledge or more background than they actually have. Sometimes we forget that we don't need to only work on the cognitive level, on the knowledge level, but also on the emotional and personal level. And sometimes we are so used to understanding why the protected area, why that place is important and relevant, that we forget that we need to make it relevant for people, for their lives and for the present. So sometimes we as experts, we sometimes take these things for granted. But if we only work on the information level, visitors can still leave. Yes, they will be informed, but they will be untouched. So they may pass through a place without understanding it. They may learn something, but fail to recognize the actual relevance of a place. They may even enjoy the beauty of the experience, the beautiful landscape or the beautiful nature, but without really feeling connected to it. So interpretation works on this shift from transmitting facts to creating meaning, from enjoying a beautiful landscape just for the beauty of it to creating a deeper connection with the place. And it works on shifting visitors from passive listeners to active carers of a place. So let's start with a little exercise. This exercise is called a tour of us, and you will find out soon why. So I would like to ask you to take your personal object, the one that we asked you to bring with you today, fetch your pen and paper, and just take a few minutes to write on your notebook these two things. So 3 facts about your object, 3 words that describe the object as it is. Okay, so things like the material, the color, the size, the shape, the age, anything that anyone can observe about this object? Okay, guys, how are you doing with the exercise? Let's move to the next step. So if you have drafted your 3 facts and your 3 meanings, just now choose 1 fact and 1 meaning and use the chat box to write your object, your fact, and your meaning like you see in the example here. So for example, this is my object, okay? It's an old notebook. It's got a blue cover, as you can see. And for me, it's important because it's my old personal diary. So it reminds me of the long growth process of becoming who I am. So if you use the chat box to write your object, your fact, and your meaning in a list, as you see here. Here we go. Things are starting to come in. So Camila says it's a seashell, it's fragile, and it brings back memories. White mark. Okay, guys. Anyone wants to? So let's look. For example, Camila, do you want to show us your? Are you able to switch on your camera and show us your object?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So you
I don't
have
know
a seashell.
Yeah, I've got a seashell.
Nice. Okay, and you said it's fragile and it brings back memories. What memories does it bring back for you?
Oh, that was the time when I was in Croatia and I was with my daughter and we were just wandering around and I found it. So it just brings back memories, good memories.
Nice. Okay. Okay. So look at the other look at Camila's description. Look at the other people descriptions. You can see that they all have something in common. The meanings are something much more personal, obviously, that makes us feel more, that makes us feel closer. So when Camila says, this is the seashell that I found on the seashore when I was on holiday with my daughter, okay? So human relations, memories, they are very powerful to build connections. So have a look at the others. Have a look at the others. Scroll the chat. Magdalena says the little ocarina she has, it's made of clay and it connects her with her home. Ivana says a ring is made of gold and it means nostalgia to her. So which parts of these descriptions make you feel closer to the person? Okay, this is a kind of a rhetoric question. The facts describe the object in an objective, impersonal way, whereas meaning reveal why that object matter for that person. So they are the human part of the object, and they help us feel closer to the object and to the person. So, and it also makes us care about the object. So if Camila left her seashell somewhere, forgot it, now that I know the story, if I was with her, I would keep the object for her. I would make sure that no one destroys that seashell because I know how much it means to her. Okay? This is also the meaning part, is also something that is more memorable to us compared to factual descriptions. So tomorrow, it's much more likely that I will remember that Camila's seashell is a memory of an experience with her daughter than the factual description that she provided, which I can't even remember now, for example. Okay? So this is what interpretation is about. Interpretation is about moving from facts to meaning. Facts are important, but they are only the starting point. It's only through meaning that we manage to create a connection with other people. Okay? So what we just did now with our personal object also happens in heritage places. So a forest, a species, a kind of animal, a ritual, a landscape, they all have facts, and you are the experts of those facts. But people who are not experts connect with those places only when those facts are connected to meanings. So heritage interpretation builds this bridge between facts and meaning. Actually, for me, it's the practice of creating the conditions to connect facts and meanings. When we say that heritage interpretation creates meaningful relationships, it's not just a nice way of saying. So interpreting means actually creating this thread. So in the moment where you describe your object with a meaning, you are creating a thread between us, all of us. We didn't know anything about Camila's seashell, okay? And if she had just shown her seashell or just described the color, the condition, it wouldn't mean anything to us. But because she mentioned her experience with her daughter, now it means something for us as well. And we know how much it means to her. So interpretation creates this thread that connects people with heritage. And this thread is meaning. In interpretation jargon, heritage objects, okay, that can be objects, that can be places, it can be nature, it can be intangible heritage. We call these things phenomenon. Okay, so interpretation creates a thread of meaning between people and heritage phenomenon. And this thread helps rise the attention of people, the interest of people, the involvement of people, and ultimately the care of people. So there are many definitions of heritage interpretations. They all highlight different aspects of interpretation, but this is actually my favorite because it is exactly, it really nails what heritage interpretation is, which is a meaning-making process, which is also, a lot of you mentioned meaning-making in the icebreaker earlier, okay? So heritage interpretation is a practice that creates meaning, that helps visitors make sense of heritage places. And then who is the interpreter? The interpreter is a facilitator in this process. So the task of the interpreter is to build that connection, to help visitors make sense of heritage. Now, obviously, I know that from your application that a lot of you are guides, either nature guides or mountain guides, tour guides. So this level of interpretation is called personal interpretation because it has a personal contact, live contact between the guide and the visitor. But there are other people that work with interpretation, with heritage interpretation. There are content creators who work with interpretive writing and interpretive design. There are experienced designers, the people who create interpretive exhibitions or design interpretation centers or installations. Also, managers work with interpretation when they need to plan for interpretation in their sites. So when they need to decide what are the stories that we are going to tell visitors, what are the themes that we are going to cover, where in the site, in the area, in the park, where do we tell these stories and how, through which media? And also, obviously, last but not least, the local communities, who are actually the first interpreters of their own heritage, because they are the ones who bear the first meanings to share about a heritage place. So heritage interpretation is a multidisciplinary practice. It draws from a lot different disciplines and research areas. It draws from communication theory. So how do we communicate well? What are the effective ways of communicating? It draws from visitor studies. How do our visitors behave? It draws on heritage studies and critical heritage studies. So things like, questions like what is heritage and what is meaning, and where are meanings from? But also obviously from education. What are effective ways for people to learn? So it's a very, these are only a few examples. There are many other disciplines involved, but these are really the core ones. So where is interpretation from? The origins of interpretations are traced back to American transcendentalism. So this is a movement in the 19th century in North America. This is the time where the first national parks were born, and there were thinkers around like John Muir or Enos Mills. So these were guys who were philosophers or authors, writers, naturalists. They were seeking a deeper connection between humans and natural places. Some of them worked on the idea of the book of nature, meaning that nature is not just it's not just a beautiful thing to enjoy, a beautiful landscape to take a walk in, but it's actually a book of signs and traces to decode. So immersing ourselves in nature is not just an enjoyable experience, but it helps us understand something about ourselves and about lives. So nature, the idea basically is that nature is not just beauty, but it also inspires reflection on ourselves. It tells us something about ourselves and about life and the world. Sometime later in the US, Freeman Tilden became the founding father of heritage interpretation. Tilden was a journalist, and for some people, he can also be considered a social scientist. And he was asked to study the work of nature guides in the United States, and to understand what it is that makes a guide a good guide. So he went studying and observing the work of nature guides, and based on his observations on the best performers, wrote this book called Interpreting Our Heritage in 1957. This book has been considered the Bible of heritage interpretation for a very long time. And in this book, he provides the first formulations of the principles of heritage interpretation. The quotation you see here is his definition of interpretation. So according to Tilden, interpretation is an educational activity which aims to reveal meanings and relationships through original objects, first-hand experience, and illustrative media, rather than simply to communicate factual information. So basically, Tilden is telling us that interpretation is indeed an educational activity, but so it does involve our head, but aims to reveal meanings and relationships. So it aims to work on the emotional level, on the heart. And how does it do that? Through original objects and first-hand experience. So using your hand, meaning using your sensory experiences. So for Tilden, interpretation was a combination of head, heart, and hand. And again, he already mentioned this shift from factual information, from communicating factual information to revealing deeper meanings. So this difference between facts and meanings is really something that belongs to interpretation since the very start. Okay, so We can have a short question and answer session if you want to ask anything before we have our 5 minutes break. So if you have any question, something not good enough, not convincing, unsure, please just say, you can write it in the chat or you can just ask directly. No? Okay. So I guess many of you have already had some experience with interpretation. I could see from your answers. So that's really good. Okay. And you guys can stop me anytime during the session if you have any doubt or come up with any question. Okay, so I would suggest we take a 5 minute break to drink some water and maybe have some coffee. So we will be back at 17:12. Okay? See you later. Okay, let's start again. So far we have talked about the difference between facts and meanings in interpretation and the importance of going from facts to meanings when we interpret for visitors. But how do we make this jump? How do we build that connection between facts and meanings? And how do we build that meaningful relationship between heritage and people? So in the second part of this session, we are going to talk about Tilden's tips. Now, I mentioned that Tilden formulated the first principles of heritage interpretation in his book, Interpreting Our Heritage. Those principles have been often summarized in these 3 tips: reveal, relate, and provoke. So these are the key ingredients for creating interpretive experiences. These are the key ingredients that you can use to build that meaningful relationship between people and places. So let's look at each of them. What does reveal means? Well, this we already discussed in the first part of today. So interpretation don't just transmit facts, but reveals deeper meanings behind the facts. So interpreting means a change of perspective. So for example, if we are looking at this Roman tower, I can say this Roman tower is 20 feet tall, and I'm just describing it objectively. I'm telling a fact about it. But I can also say this Roman tower means that soldiers were watching out from the top of it to protect the people inside the town from enemies. And in this case, I am revealing a meaning. I am changing the perspective. I am answering the question, what is the point of this? Because we always need to think that visitors have this question in mind. Why should I care? What is the point of this? Why does this matter to me? The second tip is relate. Relate means that interpretation creates a connection with people's experiences, with people's everyday lives. It makes a connection that resonates with them, with what they already know, so that the heritage we are talking about becomes somehow familiar to them already. And how do we do this? How do we create this connection with people's experiences, with people's existing knowledge, with people's everyday lives? Now, obviously, it's important to know your audiences. And of course, it's always useful to have audience research. It's always useful to know what is the profile of your visitors. Where are these people coming from? What is the age of your visitors? What are their profiles? But we all know that audience research is not always available. First of all, because it's costly. And sometimes there are not, there are no infrastructures in place that allow us to carry out proper audience research. So of course we can use our experience from our work. Those of you who are guides, they know what kind of people visit the areas where they work. They know, where these people come from, what is the average age, what kind of people are they. So field observation is obviously important to know your audience. But still, it's still hard because people are always different. People are always changing. You always get new groups, new people, new tourists. So what do we do in these cases? Now, heritage interpretation has a little trick to build this relationship, to build this connection, which is universal concepts. What are universal concepts? Universal concepts are ideas that more or less resonate with all humans. So there are ideas like family, health, freedom or power, play, or things like anger, happiness, or emotions in general, okay? Or things like survival, challenge, care. So these concepts, of course, they mean different things for different people, and they mean different things in different cultures. So what I understand, I'm Italian, what I understand about the concept of family could be very, very different from someone, I don't know, from Saudi Arabia. Okay? So these are all different concepts in different cultures. They mean different things, but we are still all humans, and there is something about these concepts that is still familiar, okay, regardless of the exact content. So if we use these concepts in interpretation, we are already creating some familiar background with the audience. The third Tilden's tip is provoke. Provoke means we are not just transmitting a message, so we are not just transmitting content or information to visitors. Visitors are not just passive listeners of what we are saying, but we are provoking new ideas and new reflections on themselves and on the present where they live. Okay, so we want them to have an active role. We want to trigger reflections, trigger new ideas. And how do we do this? A very simple and powerful way of doing this is to use open-ended questions. Now, open-ended questions are not like teachers' questions at school. Okay? When was Napoleon born is a closed-ended question because it assumes either a right or a wrong answer. Okay? What the kind of questions that interpreters use is open-ended questions. So they are questions that allow any answer. They're really just asking people for their opinions, and anything goes. Okay? So open-ended question is one way to do the provocation. The other way is to connect the heritage we are talking about, the heritage we're interpreting, to the urgent issues of today. So things like peace, war, democracy, social justice, climate, environment, mental health. In general, anything that you can conceive as a hot topic of society right now, like the Sustainable Development Goals, topics, etc. Okay, so I'd like to try this little exercise again to practice with the relate and the provoke tips. Okay, so I would like to ask you to use your object again and choose one of these two tips. Do you want to work on the relate or do you want to work on the provoke? Or if you feel like it, you can do both, up to you. Okay, so if you want to work on the relate tip, just write a sentence using this formula. We all know what it means to do something, something. This object, my object, speaks about that. Okay, so for example, if my object is a key, I could say, we all know what it means to miss home. This key speaks about that. Okay, so this is just if you want to practice with the relate. With the provoke, you just pick an open-ended question. What kind of question, what kind of reflection that object can trigger? So use your notebook, use your pen and paper, and take a few minutes to use your object again and draft this one sentence between relate and provoke, or both. It doesn't matter, actually. If you are very welcome to try both, if you want to. Okay, use maybe not 3 minutes, but let's go with 5 minutes. And if you have any question, please just raise your hand, speak out, write in the chat box. I'm very happy to answer.
Sì, è arrivato, solo che io sono in una riunione, adesso ci sono 5 minuti per fare un...
Okay, someone left the mic open.
Should we write our answers in the chat?
Write it, yeah, write it, yes, in the end, yes. I will ask you to write in the chat. So if you are ready to do so, you are welcome to do so. If you want to try with both relate and provoke, you can also connect the two sentences. Okay, the first questions, the first answers are starting to come in. So if you're happy with your sentences, just write them in the chat box now, so we can. Okay, I will start with the two that have just come in. Georgie, I guess the first is yours.
Yes.
Okay. So you are a lucky guy to have a beautiful backyard. And do you want to read your own answer?
Yes. The thing that I imagine is a big and old nut tree in my backyard. I have a lot of natural shade because of it. We spend a lot of time under that tree. I also built a tree house for kids and also have several bird houses. So we enjoy it, and also bird feeders. So we enjoy listening to birds singing and eating seeds and just feeling really comfortable in June, July, August when it's over 30 degrees outside. So it 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 relates to me, and I hope it relates to all of you.
So this is a nice one. It's an invitation, basically. Your question, do you enjoy sitting in the natural shade and listening birds singing? This is an invitation. My idea on this question is that you could actually use this idea of sitting in the shade and listening to birds singing as a statement in the first place. So, this is a place where you enjoy the natural come and enjoy the natural shade and listen to the birds singing. You could use the question. So you also experimented with the provocation to provoke other ideas, other reflections in the visitor. So what I mean is that your question in this case is an invitation about what is in front of them already. But you can use the provoke to make them go beyond it. So come and enjoy sitting in the natural shade and listening to the birds singing. What is your place? What is your heavenly place? What is your place of complete relaxation? So we use the provoke to go beyond, but it's a nice attempt.
Thank you. Great idea. Thank you.
So who else? I can see that there are other answers coming in. Is there anyone who'd like to share it?
Okay, I can talk about mine. As I said, my object was a key. My parents' house key in the village where I grew up, and I miss it so much. So I relate exactly of what you are writing, that we all know what it means to miss home, and the key speaks about that. And because this key opens up doors and brings back memories, people, happy times. That's how I feel.
Okay, thank you, Athanasia. So this is how you would relate. So if Athanasia was interpreting her key, if this key was an object of interpretation, she could use the idea, the concept of home and homesickness and missing home and childhood home to create that connection, that familiarity with the visitors.
Yes.
Thank you, Athanasia. Anyone else who's happy to share? Any volunteer?
I can go, but I cannot turn on the camera. Hello, everyone.
That's okay.
So my object was a golden ring. It was given by my grandma's sister, and she passed away 2 months later from cancer. So I'm still wearing the ring from like my teenage years, and that's why I told my relate sentence was connected to that we are all familiar with the feeling of losing someone dear to us. And I said that this rings is telling a story about it, and it's a gift that I received from someone who is no longer with us. And the question to provoke that I used in this exercise was, what gift did you receive from someone dear who is no longer with us?
Excellent. Thank you, Ivana. This is really a very good example. So as you can see in Ivana's question, it is truly an open-minded. So it's not a yes or no answer. It's what is your experience about receiving gift from someone dear? Okay. Anyone else who wants to shoot one more, maybe the last one?
I can try.
Sure.
Yeah, however, I was a bit late, so I just understood that we are talking about the object we have in a hand, but now I only read that there was a question also to be presented. So, yeah, I have a... I try to switch the camera.
It doesn't matter. Just
yeah, so I have the bird feather. It comes from the crane, which is one of the beautiful bird species which lives in the area when I live. It's northeast part of Poland, full of biodiversity, a great nature, and so on. And for me, it's a gift. It's a gift from nature, from the landscape, from the area where I live, given to me by nature. So it's only one example of the gifts I get from nature, from the place generally where I live. And the question could be, what gifts you get from wild nature, from the place where you live.
Yes.
Not monetary gifts.
Well done. Yes, yes, Malgorzata. Even if you joined later, you nailed it. So thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you for your
Thank
example.
you.
Another important thing, obviously, is that, like in Ivana's example from earlier, obviously we are not talking about the values. You know, the Ivana's object, for example, was a gold ring, but what the meaning and the value that she attached to it was obviously not at all connected to the the monetary value of it. Okay. Okay. Anyone who's happy to share, or we can move on to the next steps? Anyone who wants to share one more example? Okay. So we will close the chat now. Okay. So we already did that. Okay, so guys, we are actually approaching the end of the session today. We really try to design this in a way that is digestible and not too heavy, because we know that, you know, the fatigue we can get from the online training. So this is, we have a few minutes for you to ask any questions, or if there's anything that is not clear, if there's any doubt you have about the session today. Please feel free to ask now, or you can also go back to because sometimes it takes time to digest new concepts, and you only come up with questions afterwards. It happens to all of us. So you are very welcome to get in touch via email as well. I'm going to share my contacts and our project contacts in the next few slides. I can see you really had very nice examples here that are still coming up in the chat. Isabel, I saw your example from the first exercise as well, and I think that's very powerful. It has to do with objects, with gifts given in times of difficulties and recovery. And so Isabel is now asking what helps you to have faith, basically. So, okay, guys, if you don't have questions, I will not insist on it. But before we leave, we ask you to fill in these last few minutes our online form for the evaluation of the session.